Jackson's voice dropped. They touched us. Solano froze. Touched? Not to hurt. Not right away. Jackson swallowed hard. To learn. Knight's jaw tightened behind the glass. They pressed against our armor, Jackson continued. Hands, or something like them. They tilted our helmets, leaned close. Her breathing quickened. They knew our names. Solano's eyes widened just slightly. You're certain? They spoke inside my head, Jackson said, her voice trembling. Not with words. It was ... understanding. She hugged herself, straining against the restraints. They knew what scared us. And it wasn't death. It wasn't pain. Imagine the chilling silence after that revelation. What could possibly be more terrifying than our deepest fears being known by an alien intelligence? This scene sets up a truly mind-bending psychological horror. What do you think they discovered? What then? Solano's voice cut through the silence. Jackson's eyes, filled with unshed tears, finally focused. Being alone in the dark, they took the others, one by one. No weapons? Solano pressed. Oh, we fired, Jackson replied, a bitter taste in her mouth. But it didn't matter. The shots just went through shadows that weren't shadows. She stared blankly at the ceiling, lost in the memory. They let us watch. Every time one of my squads vanished, the corridor just got darker. It was like the light itself was afraid to follow them. Solano hesitated, the question hanging in the air. Why did they let you live? Jackson's gaze met hers, raw and broken. Because I begged. The room was deathly quiet. I told them everything, she whispered. The shame of physical weight, our tactics, our training, our sensors. I didn't even realize I was doing it until it was too late. Her voice broke. They were inside me. Knight turned away from the glass. Did they say anything else? Solano asked. Jackson nodded slowly. They said they don't hate us. A bitter smile flickered across his face. They don't even see us as enemies. What do they see you as? Jackson's eyes were unfocused, looking at something far away. Practice. 3 hours later, Jackson was sedated and transferred to long-term observation. Dr. Solano removed her gloves with shaking hands. They're not raiders, she said quietly to Knight. They're not even conquerors. What are they? Knight asked, his voice strained. Solano looked back at the unconscious lieutenant. Predators, she said, and we just stumbled into their hunting ground. An aide rushed in. Admiral, long-range sensors just picked up something. Multiple colonies, outer rim. All showing the same pattern. Silence fell, heavy and absolute. Humanity wasn't at war. It was being called. Knight closed his eyes, the weight of the report pressing down on him. How many survivors? He asked, his voice low. The aide's hesitation was answer enough. 1, he finally said. Every single time? Yes, sir. Knight's gaze shifted back to the observation room, where harsh lights fought back the endless dark. They're not leaving witnesses, he murmured, a chilling realization dawning. They're leaving warnings. Far beyond the known stars, where ancient things stirred in the void, the night hunters watched. The trial prey had learned faster than expected. Interesting. The great hunt would continue. Back at Fleet Command, a new state of alert was declared, the first in 40 years. Condition Lux Noctis, the light against the night. The war for survival had just begun. The outer colonies were evacuated wherever possible. All deep space traffic was rerouted into brightly lit corridors, guarded by overlapping sensor nets and constant drone patrols. Experimental lighting arrays were rushed from prototype to full deployment, flooding every station and ship with a hard artificial brilliance. The thinking was simple. If the enemy lived in darkness, humanity would drown them in light. Admiral Jonah Knight stood before the Strategic Defense Council, his hands braced against the briefing table. Holograms of lost colonies rotated slowly in the air. "We are not dealing with pirates," he stated, his voice firm. "Not insurgents. Not even a conventional alien military." A skeptical general scoffed from the side. "Then what are they, Admiral?" Knight's voice was chillingly flat. "A species that evolved to hunt sapient prey." Silence filled the chamber. The first real test of their new strategy would come at Outpost Helianth, a fortified refueling station guarding a major transit junction. Helianth was prepared. Unlike Kepri's Reach, this station blazed with light. Corridors glowed with visible, ultraviolet, and infrared illumination. Marines trained to operate without shadows patrolled every deck. Captain Max Hemmingsworth addressed his crew. "We hold the line here. Nothing sneaks through Helianth unseen." He truly believed it. At 2:41 station time, every light flickered. Not off, just dimmer. "Power fluctuation?" Hemmingsworth demanded. "No, ma'am," engineering replied. "Grid's stable." "Then why are my lights fading?" Before anyone could answer, the outer sensor net screamed. "Multiple contacts." "No, wait. Ghost contacts. Bearing shifting, range collapsing." The tactical display filled with distortions, black voids swallowing starlight without registering any mass. "They're here," someone whispered. Hemmingsworth straightened. "All hands, weapons free, illuminate everything." The floodlights intensified, and for the first time, with a light bent, the night hunters were seen. Tall, elongated forms stepped into partial visibility, their skin drinking in the light, their outlines wavering as if reality itself struggled to define them. Their eyes burned with a faint, cold, analytical bioluminescence. They wore no armor. They didn't need it. "Open fire," Hemmingsworth ordered. The station erupted in light and fury. Lasers slashed across space. Railgun slugs tore through the void. Missiles detonated in brilliant blossoms of destruction. Some shots struck true. The hunters recoiled, not from pain, but from the sudden exposure. And for the first time, they screamed. Not in agony, but in surprise. Meanwhile, Marine squads advanced through the station's corridors, weapons blazing, light cannons flooding every corner with blinding energy. "Contact front," a sergeant yelled. A hunter lunged from a wall that should not have held a body, its limbs impossibly long, its joints bending all wrong. It was fast. Faster than any training simulation could have prepared them for. It was fast. Faster than any training simulation. But we could see it. Gunfire tore into its shadow-like skin, hammering it back until it collapsed, convulsing, and then went still. A human had killed a night hunter. Cheers exploded over the combs, but they were too soon. The corpse began to dissolve, not melting, but unraveling into drifting motes of darkness that simply faded away. "No remains," our science officer reported, breathless. "No sample. Doesn't matter," Commander Hemmingsworth snapped. "We can kill them." But she was wrong. The hunters adapted. The next wave didn't rush the light. They moved between the flickers. In the milliseconds of darkness, lights exploded. Power conduits ruptured. Marines screamed as shapes passed right through them. Bypassing armor, bypassing flesh, and going straight for the nervous system. "They're ignoring the body," a medic shouted. "They're attacking the brain." As chaos consumed the battlefield, Hemmingsworth gave the order, "Fall back to core." The hunters let them go. They were learning. "We hold," he said fiercely. "We hold here." The room darkened. Not suddenly, but gradually, as if night itself was being poured into the vastness of space. The hunters appeared along the walls, half seen, half felt, their presence pressing against the human minds like a suffocating weight. One stepped forward. It was taller than the others, its eyes burning brighter. It raised a clawed hand, not in threat, but in a chilling acknowledgement. "You adapt quickly, Lightborn." The voice didn't echo. It resonated deep inside every skull. "This pleases the hunt. Hemmingsworth felt her knees weaken, but she refused to kneel. "We will fight you," she declared through clenched teeth, her voice ringing with defiance. "Every system, every star." What happens next in this cosmic showdown? The hunter tilted its head. Yes, then the lights went out. Outpost Helianth burned for 12 long hours. When coalition reinforcements finally arrived, they found nothing but wreckage, scorched corridors, and a single surviving data core transmitting on emergency power. The report was grim. 63% of all personnel were lost. 100% of the station's external defenses were obliterated. And perhaps most chilling of all, 0 Night Hunter remains were recovered. They had vanished. But Helianth had not fallen silently. Our weapons, human weapons, had forced the hunters to withdraw. For the very first time, the prey had drawn blood from the predator. Fleet Command immediately reclassified the enemy. No longer were they just unknown. They were now officially designated as hostile. This was just the beginning. Admiral Knight watched the after-action report in silence. "They're not invincible," someone said. Knight nodded slowly. "No," he agreed. "But now they're interested." In the vast, cold darkness between stars, the entities known as Night Hunters convened. Their prey, humanity, had shown teeth. This changed everything. The game would escalate. The hunt would become war. The attacks that followed defied all human logic. That was Fleet Command's first mistake, assuming there was logic as humans understood it. After the fall of Helianth, analysts were desperate. Every engagement, every sensor anomaly, every survivor's testimony was fed into predictive models to detect intent, but the models consistently failed. The Night Hunters hit colonies with no resource value. They ignored military outposts, but made civilian convoys vanish. Some systems were struck twice, others were left untouched. "There's no strategic coherence," a senior analyst insisted. "No supply interdiction. No territorial claims." Admiral Knight just stared at the holomap, a chilling realization dawning on him. "You're wrong. There's coherence. Just not ours." Dr. Annika Solano stood before a room of admirals and scientists. Her presentation paused at a single haunting image. A symbol carved into the wall at Kepri's reach. "This mark," she explained, "appears at every major Night Hunter incursion. Always in a central, deliberately visible location. Some called it a calling card, but Solano disagreed. It's a scorecard." She advanced the slide, revealing clusters of attacks lighting up across a star map, forming faint, unmistakable arcs. These aren't random strikes. They're routes, migration paths. When asked what was migrating, Solano's gaze was unwavering. Predators. Then she overlaid human expansion data onto the map. Colonization waves, trade corridors, population densities. The room fell silent as the chilling truth became clear. We aren't the hunters. We are the prey. They're following us. No, they're hurting us. The Night Hunters don't just attack random worlds. They strike just enough to redirect traffic, to push survivors inward. Toward what? A controlled environment. A hunting preserve. The terrifying truth emerged slowly, pieced together from fragments of alien behavior and our own fear. The Night Hunters don't wage wars. They conduct hunts. Each hunt has phases. First, observation. Silent presence, sensor shadows, psychological probing. Then, testing. Small strikes, single survivors, measuring our response. After that, selection. They choose targets not for strategic value, but for behavior, for resilience, for aggression. Then comes the calling. They eliminate the weak, the predictable prey. And finally, elevation. They preserve those of us who fight back, who adapt. They're not trying to destroy us. They're shaping us. They're making us stronger, more dangerous prey for their ultimate hunt. Fleet Command called an emergency ethics council. One diplomat wondered aloud, what if this is their version of first contact? Just a cultural misunderstanding? But Knight wasn't having it. They wiped out entire colonies, he argued. The diplomat countered, but they left survivors. Knight snapped back. A wolf leaves a limping deer. Does that make it merciful? Silence filled the room. The most chilling information came from those very survivors. From system to system, each one reported the same terrifying experiences. A direct intrusion into their minds, emotional profiling, and memories being replayed against their will. They all felt like they were being evaluated. Dr. Solano clarified. They don't see us as individuals. They see us as traits. A general, confused, asked her to explain. They're identifying courage, fear, aggression, creativity, she said. They're not meeting us. They're cataloging our entire species by our responses. To what end? Knight asked. Solano looked down. To decide whether we're worth hunting further. The Night Hunter's message arrived without transmission. Every deep space listening array detected it at the same time, not as sound or data, but as a pressure and cognition, a shared intrusion across thousands of minds. Those exposed described it the same way, a presence standing just behind thought. Fleet Command sealed the affected facilities. The message was recorded, not in language, but in a structured neural echo, translated only after weeks of analysis. When the words finally emerged, they were simple. The light learns. The dark approves. Attached was a star map. One system was highlighted. A challenge. The system lay beyond established charts, cold and star-poor, wrapped in dust clouds that devoured sensor returns. It's a trap, someone said. Yes, Knight agreed. But it's also an invitation. He turned to the assembled admirals. They believe we will either hide or charge blindly. He straightened. We do neither. In the deepest shadows of space, a new kind of war began. It was called Project Lantern, a secret born from desperation. Our enemy, the Night Hunters, fed on our fear, so we decided to change the menu. This wasn't about bigger guns or faster ships. It was about fighting smart, about becoming the one thing they couldn't predict. We developed new tactics. Like variable spectrum light, to blind their senses and cognitive noise to jam their psychic attacks. We decentralized our command, so even if they took out a leader, the body would keep fighting. As one of our commanders put it, they hunt fear, so we weaponized discipline. We learned to fight in the dark, to turn their greatest advantage against them. We were no longer just prey cowering in the light. We were a puzzle, a riddle wrapped in an enigma, waiting for them to study us. And far away, they watched, confused. Their prey had stopped running. Their prey had started to think. Adapted, prepared. One of the seers tilted its long head, its eyes glowing with a faint, unsettling light. It whispered a single thought, a warning that echoed through the void. The light resists. Another seer replied, its voice a chilling rasp. Good. For them, the hunt was changing. It was no longer a simple chase, but was twisting into something else entirely. Something ancient. Something far more dangerous. For generations, humanity had been forced to learn the hard lessons of the Night Doctrine, surviving in the shadows. But now, things were different. They had learned, they had grown stronger, and they were ready to fight back. Now, humanity would write a doctrine of its own. The place was called Erebos Drift, a dead system right on the edge of coalition territory. It was picked for one simple reason. Nothing lived there, so nothing important could die. No colonies, no trade routes. Just dust, ice, and the rusted shell of a terraforming project that failed decades ago. Fleet Command went to work, scattering fake signals everywhere, encrypted messages, fake distress calls. Military chatter that was just careless enough to sound real. It was a perfectly baited hook. From a hidden command ship, Admiral Jonah Knight watched, confident. They'll come. he said. Beside him, Dr. Annika Solano simply nodded. They always do. The fleet waiting for them. Task Force Lantern was something new. They moved in total darkness, their lights pulsing randomly across every spectrum, from visible light to hard gamma rays. It was a light show of controlled chaos, designed to confuse and overwhelm. This time, humanity was ready. You won't feel calm, the instructors had warned them. You won't feel brave, but you will be hard to read. Captain Max Hemmingsworth, pulled from recovery after helianth, commanded the operation. They took my station, he said quietly to his crew. Today, we take something back. The Night Hunters arrived without announcement. No distortion this time, no tentative probing. They came in force. Space itself seemed to thin as their ships emerged sleek, crescent-shaped voids that swallowed light and bent perception. Contacts confirmed, Tactical reported. Multiple Hunter vessels. They're hesitating. Knight leaned forward. Why? Solano's eyes narrowed. Because this doesn't look like prey. The first Hunter boarding attempt failed. When they phased into the derelict platform, they found corridors flooded with shifting illumination. The light moved on its own, reflecting from impossible angles. Marine squads didn't fire immediately. They waited. The Hunters struck and recoiled. Neural intrusion met noise. Psychological probing met emotional static. For the first time, the Hunters faltered in their attack. A Marine yelled out, "They can't lock on. They don't know where we are." Hemmingsworth just smiled grimly and said, "Good." Human weapons struck with absolute precision. Not with overwhelming firepower, but with targeted bursts of light-amplified plasma. These weren't meant to destroy, but to expose, forcing the Hunters into full visibility before kinetic rounds slammed into real mass. Suddenly, a Hunter fell, and this time it didn't dissolve immediately. For 3 full seconds, its body remained tangible. Just enough time. Sample secured? The science team yelled. Cheers erupted across the bridge. And then the lights died. The Hunters were adapting faster than anyone expected. Darkness rolled through the platform like a living thing, swallowing all light. Cognitive noise emitters spiked and then inverted. What's happening? Hemmingsworth demanded. Solano realized the horrifying truth. They're feeding on the noise. They're learning to ride it. The Hunters returned, their movements sharper, their confidence radiating through the void. This time, they spoke, their words broadcasting across every open channel. You bleed light. You scream order. You are changing. It wasn't condemnation. It was admiration. Human casualties mounted. Marine squads fought blind, trusting their training, trusting each other. Ships maneuvered without a central command, relying on instinct drilled into muscle memory. A destroyer vanished, then reappeared, half its crew catatonic, minds burned clean. Abort? An aide asked Knight. He watched the chaos unfold. No, he said. Not yet. That's when Hemmingsworth led the counterstrike. Her ship, the Radiant Edge, plunged into the heart of the enemy formation, and all lights died. Total darkness. Then, a single focused pulse. A beam of coherent light ripped through the void, outlining 3 Hunter vessels. Our ships fired. 2 enemy targets shattered, leaving real debris. They can die, Hemmingsworth whispered. The Hunters withdrew, their retreat measured, not panicked. As they vanished, one final message echoed in our minds. The prey walks into the night. This pleases us. After the battle in Erebus Drift, a chilling silence returned. The after-action reports were brutal. Our losses were heavy, and the psychological trauma was immense. But humanity had achieved something unprecedented. We had confirmed Night Hunter casualties, recovered their biological material, and found proof that even they have limits to their adaptability. But there was something else, something more unsettling. I stood with Solano, staring into the containment chamber. Inside, fragments of shadow skin were suspended in a beam of light. "They're not afraid of us," I said. Solano just shook her head. "No, they're excited. And that," she whispered, "might be worse." Project Lantern was a partial success. We had learned to wound the dark. Now, we have to decide how far we're willing to go to become something the dark truly respects. Phantom static, where the phantoms speak through the static.